It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Smooth and Savvy is joined by some of the hottest talent in the entertainment industry, from musicians to authors and all those in between. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Mr. Smooth and Savvy himself, Douglas Coleman.
Howdy-howdy-o, hey, ha. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. Happy New Year to all you people. I know New Year is a bit past by now, but there are those people that still keep writing 2016 for like 6 weeks after it's New Year. So I just want to remind people in case they forget, it is in fact 2017. Pretty amazing considering 100 years ago, the United States was just starting its involvement in World War I. So a lot's happened in 100 years, folks. We've got 2 interviews on deck today. We've got an author and we've got a musician. The first one up is W.T. Fallon, who is an author, has written a book called Fail to the Chief, which is a comedy based on the election process of our president. And anyone who watched the election just passed, it was certainly a comedy. So I think the book's timing is very, very good. She will be up first, and then followed by Hicks. Yes, that's his name. That's his stage name. His real name is Michael Persson. He is a Swedish country artist. He's won all kinds of awards, worked with all sorts of Grammy-nominated people, and he will be up second. We've got 2 of his songs to play today, Hayride and Stomp a Little Louder. 2 great songs. So, first up is W.T. Fallon, and then Hicks.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com. Okay, please welcome my guest, W.T. Fallon. Hello, W.T. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today, Douglas?
Doing pretty well. You are basically an author, right? I was reading through your bio, and you've written a lot of things.
I do a lot of different types of writing. I have a book called Fail to the Chief, and that's political satire. I also write for Humor Outcasts, which is a website. I write a lot of satire and humor articles there, too. I was featured on the Satirist Online one time. So I write a lot of comedy for a lot of different places. I write for my local Northwest Arkansas Gridiron Show. A Gridiron Show is when journalists and former journalists get together and make fun of things they see in the news, so it's also a lot of satire. So I do a lot of different types of humor and satire writing.
You wrote a blog, now you wrote a book. You said Gridiron Show. Is that a radio show?
No, that's a live show that we put on. It's done in a lot of different parts of the country. I have a colleague who used to live in Los Angeles, and they did a Gridiron Show there. In Northwest Arkansas, we do one every year, and it's put on by local journalists and the Society for Professional Journalists and Journalism Students. And it's a live show. I write for it, and I also act in it. So that's what we do. Basically, it's making fun of people in the news, the people that journalists talk about every day. We get together and have a show. It's kind of like a roast.
So is it like SNL, that type of thing?
It's a lot like SNL, yeah. We do a lot of parodies and sketches on different things.
Oh, all right. But it's a live theater show.
It is, yeah. We do it in a live theater.
Give us a little background on yourself. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can talk about your book.
Okay. I have 2 college degrees. The first one was in broadcast journalism, and I worked at a TV station for about 5 years. I really liked it. I loved all the people that I worked with, but there is not a lot of money to be had in the journalism business. And when you live in a smaller area like I do, there's not a lot of news, so it just wasn't very intellectually challenging for me. So I went back and got a second degree in advertising and public relations with a minor in marketing. I did have a couple of marketing jobs. I was laid off in February from that job, so now I'm kind of self-employed. I sell some stuff online and do some consulting work, and that's what I do now. It gives me more time to write and to keep up with my writer's schedule. I'm a natural night owl, and I've done some reading, and actually people who are night owls are more creative and are better at things like writing. So I like working from home and working on my own schedule.
Well, I think you're right about creative people being night owls, because most of the musicians that I know who are songwriters work from about 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That's kind of their golden hour. You know, they don't even get started in the day until noon. And
yeah, that's pretty much how I am.
Like that for me too, because it's quiet at that time, you know, and you can work. I don't know. There's just something about the nighttime. And then, you know, one thing good about living in Vegas is everything is open 24 hours. So I can work and then go and eat at 3 a.m., you know, which is perfect because you're generally the only one in the place. So it's kind of like you feel more like you have the world to yourself, and it kind of clears your head because you're not dealing with all these people and all this stuff and all, you know, going on. I don't know. I think that's something very common with creative people. They need that kind of clearness in their head. They got to get rid of all the junk so that they can just let the creative side come out. You know, it gets bogged down sometimes.
I agree. Yeah. You need some solitude, you know, you can just think for yourself and not have a lot of interruptions from other people. I think you get that a lot during the day and less at night after everyone else has gone to bed. Yeah,
very true. All right, so your book is called Fail to the Chief. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about the story?
Okay, great. It is called Fail to the Chief. That's kind of a play on Hail to the Chief. We call it a parody of presidential proportions. And basically, I imagined the presidential election as a reality show like you would see on TV, like American Idol or The Voice, only instead of having people, you know, sing or compete on an island to win $1 million or something. Basically, they take all of the politicians who want to be president. They start with like 10 contestants, and they get them all together, and they put them on the show. And you know how they always have, you know, a house that people live in on a reality show.
Right.
So I imagined that they were going to be living in this replica of the White House with all the different rooms like you see in the White House. And so that's where they are on this show. And they have different competitions. Their first challenge is they have to do something that Congress struggles to do. They have to balance the budget. And of course, you've got all these different personalities and different people who are running for president. And then you've got the host, Brian Seafoam, who's just the affable host that you typically see on reality shows. And he really wants to be a serious journalist, but he's being pressured to do all these things to make the show popular and to be nice to all the candidates and not appear too mean, but not appear to give them softball questions. And he's being pulled in all these different directions. And then you go back to the personalities of all the different politicians who are involved in that. So it's a comedy, and there's a lot of funny things. I had all these things that I thought about when I think about, you know, the election and things that you'd like to see. Like, I always wanted to see a debate where the candidates were hooked up to a polygraph, so I made that one of the things that happened.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, they should do that for real, I think.
I know, wouldn't that be great if, you know, you had just like some sort of real-time monitoring of whether the candidates were telling the truth, and maybe like a little buzzer or something, or a little graphic that shows the reliability of what they're saying. I think that would be hilarious.
Well, I'm so glad that this election is over with, because it was the worst one. And you're talking about a reality show. I mean, this election wasn't that far away. You know,
yeah, I know what you mean.
It was almost surreal what was going on. I mean, we had the two most unpopular candidates in recent history. It got down and dirty, nasty, unprofessional. Everything you could imagine went wrong. And it became like that. It became like a farce to the point where SNL wasn't funny. The real thing was much more funny than any parody. It was difficult to parody something that was so absurd already. But one of your people in here is Ronald Trump.
Ronald Chump.
Ronald Trump. Chump.
Okay. I
Okay.
don't know who this Trump guy is. There's a character in my book called Ronald Chump, and he just happens to be a billionaire who's running for president. So, obviously nothing like that could ever happen in real life.
Oh, God, no. Okay, so is he, obviously the name is similar. Is he anything like our president-elect?
Well, he's also a billionaire, and he also has no experience in politics or doing anything but counting his own money. But he's different in some ways. I finished writing this book early in March, so I made fun of a lot of things that had happened in the actual election cycle. There's some joke about him having bigger hands than one of the other candidates. But I also made up a lot of the stuff, too. I just thought about what a billionaire running for president would do and how he would respond when asked certain questions and how he was going to fix things. Ronald is one of the funny characters that I really like in this book. But there's some other good characters, too. I kind of make fun of a lot of different personalities that you see in politics. There's a third-party candidate whose only real plan to do anything is to legalize pot, and he doesn't know anything about anything, and he's just kind of useless. Also someone you would never see in a real election. And, then there's the congresswoman who we have all the candidates go out and work different jobs. That was another thing I wanted to do with the plot. I wanted to have all these politicians working in a real job and not like a photo op, like you see sometimes when you see politicians, they go out and, they'll serve coffee or they'll serve food at a homeless shelter or something, but they have all their aides around them making sure that they look good. So I didn't want it to be like that in my book. In the book, they all have to go out and have no help and just have to work at these jobs. So we have a congresswoman working in a coffee shop, and she claims to help the poor, but she has all these customers asking her things like, didn't you mostly just help your rich friends? So we have a lot of different kinds of characters in the book.
Who is the sort of Hillary character? Is that one, the congresswoman?
Yeah, that's the congresswoman. She was the character who it's kind of similar to Hillary Clinton.
Okay, because Ronald Chump, I'll get that right. I keep wanting to say Trump, which is too close. He says here that he challenged to dig his proposed moat along the Mexican-American border. Honestly, I think it would be easier to do a moat than to do the wall that he's talking about. It'd make more sense to go down,
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It being a parody, I wanted to kind of make it even more ridiculous than what it was in real life. And like I said, I had this challenge for all the candidates where they had to go out and do regular jobs. And in the book, of course, the whole thing is controlled by the American people. They vote via social media poll on what they want the challenges to be for the candidates. And for this one challenge where they all have to go out and work jobs, they don't all work the same job. The American public chooses a job for each candidate based on either their past experience or their campaign promises. So we have this billionaire, Ronald Trump, who wants to build a moat between the United States and Mexico to keep out illegal immigrants. And so someone suggested he should have to dig the moat himself. So we have this scene where he's on a bulldozer, and clearly he has no experience with that sort of work. And he also announces that, to make the United States really safe, he's going to put some nuclear warheads along this moat just to keep us really safe from everyone. And so I wanted that scene to be really ridiculous, and I think it turned out very well.
So is there a surprise ending to your book?
There is. There are some twists at the end of it. It's a reality show, but you also have Congress, and there are some scheming politicians who don't like this new setup that we have in the reality of the book. They don't want to choose the president by reality show. So there are some surprising things that happen towards the end of the book, and I mentioned the host, Brian Seafoam. He kind of gets pulled into this conspiracy. There's some cheating going on, and after he uncovers that, he uncovers an even bigger scandal. So there's definitely some twists that happen towards the end of the book.
Is this something that you would incorporate into a live show? Because it sounds like it could work. Or perhaps a web short film or something like that. Web series,
sure.
even. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would make a great show, either live or, on the internet or on some sort of video. I think it would be very funny.
Well, on a serious side, though, that's not a half bad idea to have the candidates actually do something to sort of show people, it's like they're doing a little bit of an audition. Because the debates, after this year, I think there's like no credibility to the debates.
Yeah.
And to actually have them go out and do something to sort of earn their right to be president isn't really such a bad idea. I think one thing about this election that it's sort of changed the rules where all bets are off now. Anything is possible. Donald Trump's Twitter campaign was very prominent, and it wasn't anything that anybody else had ever really done. I mean, Obama did some tweets, but Trump's really made the front page.
Right.
And, people almost voted based on his tweets, which, if you think about, isn't that far away from what you were writing about.
That's true. Yeah, I did kind of incorporate social media into this reality show. Having people vote via social media, not just for the candidates, but for what they wanted the challenges to be. And I think that speaks to a lot of people. I think most voters would rather have more of a voice in the election process than what we have. I mean, obviously, people have more of an opportunity to talk about things. And, you can even tweet to one of the candidates if you want to. They might respond back. And, of course, you do have candidates going out there and tweeting a lot and things like that. But I thought it would be interesting to have people just decide not just to vote on social media, but also to decide how the election goes, what things they want to hear from the candidates to kind of control the debate. Not like when you see debate on TV and, they might ask people for questions beforehand, but to actually control how the debate goes and what challenges the candidates have to do. And I also thought about, like I said, things that I've always wanted to see in elections, challenges that I've wanted to put presidential candidates through. When I watch things on TV and I'm kind of just like, yeah, these people don't know what they're talking about. I've always thought about things that would maybe make it more real than just a debate, having them go out and work at actual jobs where they didn't have someone helping them to look good, but they actually had to do a real job and learn what it's like and react to that and see what the American people think about that.
Yeah, very true. Do you think we'll ever get to the point where we're going to vote online?
I would like that idea. I know a lot of people have issues, with what if it's not secure? Wouldn't it be easier to hack? And you also hear some of those things about regular elections too, people wanting recounts and things. I don't think people have a lot of trust in our election process the way it is today either. But yeah, I do think that eventually it'll be easier to vote online. I think we might have more voter turnout if people voted online. Because, basically only half of Americans voted in this previous election and the lines were long. A lot of people didn't get the opportunity to vote.
Yeah, and, it's not that far off anyways because a lot of the votes are counted by computer. So the difference is just showing your face and making sure that you are who you said you were. I guess the, identification process, but that can be done online because people move money. They do banking online. I would be definitely interested to see something like that. Just gets one step closer to your book. I assume that the candidates at the end, the people vote them out like on Survivor. Is that kind of how that works?
Right. Yeah. Each week they vote off another candidate and then the last three go head to head, and the winner gets to be president, and the second runner-up gets to be vice president, and the third runner-up gets to be secretary of state, and then the president makes other cabinet appointments in the regular way after that. But yeah, it's kind of like what you see on Survivor, The Voice. A different person gets voted off each week until you have your top three, and then you have your last person standing.
Where is the book available now? I assume it's out now, right?
Yes, it's online. It's available on Amazon. There's a Kindle version, and also there's a paperback version. they're having some issues with the availability, but there should be a paperback version available soon. But it is available for Kindle right now, too.
Okay. How's the book doing?
It's doing pretty well. I've gotten several good reviews of it. Everyone who's read it has told me that they think it's hilarious. So right now I'm just trying to get the word out and get more people to know about it. That's the challenge with any book.
Was this your first book that you've written?
It is. Mm-hmm.
So
I've written other books, but this is the first one that I've published, and certainly the first political satire that I've ever written. I had written some satire in the past, like for the Gridiron Show, just as basic skits, but I'd never really thought about writing satire as an entire novel until I started working on Fails to the Chief.
Do you have any new projects? Anything in the works?
Yeah, I'm working on my second novel. It's kind of a satire. It's not so much political. It takes place in the not-so-distant future, and it's kind of a satire of the pharmaceutical company. At the moment, it's called The Trust Pill.
Tell us a little bit about that. I can't think of anything funny about pharmaceuticals, but go ahead.
The Trust Pill, it's basically about a guy who works for a pharmaceutical company, and he develops a pill that makes people more trusting. And that's not too far off if you've done any reading on the subject. Some research has been done on, different hormones and things that actually do make people more trusting. So it's not, completely far-fetched. But he has developed a pill that makes people more trusting, and he thinks this is a good thing because, he's had trust issues his whole life, and that's inspired him to work on this. He's also the son of the CEO of this pharmaceutical company that he works for. And he meets a woman named Mackenzie, and she works in marketing. He wants her to help him sell this product. And she also has had trust issues her whole life, but unlike him, she doesn't think that's a problem that should be fixed. So she tells him, this is a stupid product, you should develop something else. But then she ends up giving him some free advice. And then as he goes along, he runs into some problems. He has some people who are after him because they want the drug. There's some other drug companies who are after it, and also some shadowy government types who kind of come into it too. So it's kind of a thriller and an adventure. Also kind of comical, though.
Well, it sounds very interesting. Do you have a date for that one yet, or is it still in the works?
I'm still working on finishing that, so probably 2018.
Oh, okay. What is your website that people can come and take a look at you?
It's shareablesarcasm.wordpress.com. I blog there. And you can also find links to my book there as well in my About Me section. And I write some satire, and I also do commentary on current events. I encourage people to visit me there. I'm also on Facebook or Twitter. You just look for W.T. Fallon. I'm at W.T. Fallon Author on Twitter.
Well, I think we've covered it. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and best of luck with the book. It sounds hysterical. I mean, it really... I think your timing obviously was very good for this.
Thank you.
With this election. So, and even though it's a satire, I think there is some truths to where things may go. After this election, like I said, anything is possible. And,
right.
There wouldn't be such a bad idea. Make them all work at McDonald's for a month or two.
That is actually one of the scenes, not so much McDonald's. There's a fictional burger restaurant, but there is actually a politician who's against the minimum wage hike, and he gets assigned to go work in a fast food restaurant. So that's one of the scenes in the book.
Oh, well, there you go. That's perfect. Okay, W.T., thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on The Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Acclaimed author of Garden, Jane Yates brings you the first book in a new trilogy, Octopus Pirate, a story of a foundling who has unusual talents, such as the ability to communicate with octopuses. As a baby, he was washed up on an island off the Scottish mainland. An eccentric former nun who lives alone with cats brings him up. He joins a circus and narrowly escapes plots against him, flees to Cornwall, builds a replica pirate ship that's also an airship to travel back in time to fight real pirates. Get your copy today from Amazon, only 99 cents.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps from the UK, record producer, engineer. You might have heard of me. I've worked with artists from Elton John to Led Zeppelin to Bad Company, Twisted Sister, Robbie Williams, Oasis, many, many great bands and artists in the past and the present and hopefully in the future. But you can work with me as well. You know, all you got to do is get in touch with me on eppsmusicproductions.com. That's EWPSproductionsmusic.com. And I can help you with your productions and with your recordings. A lot of people do home recordings now, which you can only take so far. Maybe they need a bit of professional help. So get in touch with me and we can sort it out. And thanks for Douglas Coleman for giving me the spot. Thanks a lot. Cheers, bye.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. See? Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Wrong hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome Hicks. Hello, Hicks. How are you?
Hey, Douglas. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Oh, doing very well. Now, as we were just talking about, Hicks is your stage name, and your real name is Michael Persson, Persson. Okay.
Yeah.
But we'll just call you Hicks for the duration of the interview so that when people want to look you up and look up your music, they can find you under Hicks.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, you are from Stockholm, Sweden, correct?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
And I must ask, am I the first Swedish country artist who's on your show?
No, actually, we've had one other one.
Damn.
Yeah, sorry about that. A guy named, his last name was Leonard.
TJ.
TJ Leonard, that's it. Yeah.
TJ, you know what? I just came back from his studio. I was over there working with him today. So that's cool.
Oh, okay. So all of you Swedish country artists know each other? Is that the...
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, we're not that many. So we try to support each other and help each other the best way we can.
Now, is that your truck in this picture? I'm looking at a picture of you sitting with a cowboy hat, sitting on a Dodge truck.
Yeah, no, it's not mine. It's a good friend of mine. It's his truck. But I called him and asked, hey, can I borrow your truck for a photo shoot? Yeah, sure. Oh, cool. I love that truck. I asked him to sell it to me, but he won't sell it.
Well, what year is that? That thing looks like it's from the 70s or maybe 60s even.
Yeah, I think it is a 68 or 69. I don't remember. Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Now, I was kind of curious when I interviewed TJ, and I'm going to ask you the same questions. What is it about American, or Americana, I should say, because it's not just the music you're doing, it's the whole image you're doing, the Dodge truck, the cowboy hat. What is it that's that appealing about American music and Americana sort of life?
To me, that's freedom, and it's about just being who you want to be, who you are, because I always had a big attraction to that lifestyle and the music and everything. So to me, it's just more becoming the real me, because it's not typically Swedish to listen to country or to be a country artist. So it's just who I am. I can't explain it better.
Now, have you been to the United States?
Oh, lots and lots of times. I go 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year to Nashville and work. And
okay.
I play here and there. So, yeah, I'm there a lot.
Well, I don't even hear an accent with you. I mean, it's it's like if you...
I think it is that... Because what I've noticed in a lot of my friends who are musicians as well, that I think we pick up on the melody when we learn a new language. And I guess it's that you hear the musicality in the language. I'm not sure. It's just an amateur theory. But I think it could have something to do with that.
Well, it's true that musicians tend to be very good at language. Because of that, you know, with a musical ear, you can pick up the sounds and you can pick up the tones and the accents and things. But no.
But a fun thing about me is that my inner conversation has always been in English, and I don't know why. As long as I can remember, since I was a little kid, I always think in English. I can express myself a lot better in English, and I don't know why. Because my parents, they are as Swedish as you can get. So it's just a weird thing.
That is odd. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it's not British English. When I went to school, they were always dogging me about, hey, you can't pronounce it like that. We talk like this. This is a dog. And it was so British. And I was just like, this comes natural to me. This is how I talk. Do you understand me? Yes, good. Let's talk. I mean, not so big deal how you sound or what kind of accent you have, just as long as you can make yourself understood.
Maybe you had the American chicken pox when you were a kid, and it just kind of
probably
morphed into you somehow, yeah?
Or maybe just from growing up looking on television and movies and listening to music from America, and maybe it's that, or maybe I had a past life in the United States. I don't know.
There you go. One of the interesting things that I was talking with TJ about is the fact that in Scandinavia, people really speak very, very good English. I mean, I haven't been to Sweden, but I have been to Copenhagen. And when I was there, I mean, English was spoken just everywhere, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think they teach it in school from, I think, second grade.
Now, do they teach British English or American English?
It's mostly British, but it's starting to turn now. I mean, when I went to school, that was so many years ago, and it was a very old-fashioned way. And now I think when people travel as much as they do, I don't think they care about that.
Well, I think American English is more widely understood around the world these days, much to the chagrin of the British because of movies, primarily.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Everybody sees the movies from Hollywood, and, you know, that's the language, that's the English that they hear and that they understand more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so, too.
Yeah. All right, so tell us a little bit about your musical background. How did you get started with music? And
well, according to Ma, I started when I was 2 years old. I used my grandpa's, he had a big shoehorn, and I used that as a guitar, and I played air guitar on that. I was just in my diapers, and they played country music on a record player, and I was just there playing air guitar to Johnny Cash and Jim Reeves and Hank and everything, and it was just like, well, he's going to be an artist. And they were right. So according to her, it started there. But I did my first professional gig when I was 12 years old. And I was playing bass in a rock band. And we played at the school a Friday night at school on the big stage. And I was hooked. I mean, I was in front of hundreds of people, and everybody cheered and clapped their hands, and I stood up there playing, and I was just like, wow. Okay. Then I found my calling.
So you said your grandparents listened to country music?
Yeah, they did. My grandpa and my grandma, or my ma especially, are big country music fans. Okay. Ma, she loves Hank. She's just a Hank fan.
So real traditional country music.
Yeah, real traditional old school country. But she likes the new stuff as well, because when I started playing her country, she was just like, wow, that's kind of different, but I like it. So I introduced her to Blake Shelton, Keith Urban, and everybody, and she's like, wow, this is good. So she likes it.
So what kind of rock and roll music did you listen to?
In the 70s, everything that came out at that time, it was Sweet and Slade from Britain, and they were a mix between pop and rock. And then there was Black Sabbath and Kiss and Led Zeppelin. But I really started to really love rock in the 80s with bands like Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Van Halen, because it was so melodic. I'm crazy about melodies.
Yeah, me too. I like a song with a good melody. That's why I have trouble with rap music, because it just doesn't have any melody at all.
Exactly. I get Eminem, the way he's rapping, because I think he has a lot more melody to what he does.
Yeah, rhythmic melody, perhaps.
Yeah, Exactly. But I mean, I want a big chorus that you can sing along to.
Yeah, somehow singing, I don't know. I'd listen to everything from the old 40s standards through the Beatles, through the singer-songwriters of the 70s. I like some of the hair band stuff from the 80s. And then my musical interest sort of stopped because it got a little too computerized for me. And it lost the soul. It lost the singing. And I agree with you.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that, too. I just bought a Christmas record with the crooners, Perry Como, Frank Sinatra,
Oh, yeah.
Sammy Davis, and Dean Martin. It's just great. I mean, those guys can sing.
They were smooth. They were very, very smooth singers.
And the songs that they wrote, I mean, when you listen to contemporary Christmas music, they just fill it with a lot of words that has to do with Christmas. There's the kids, there's the angels, and there's the tree and the presents, and it's so formulated. But those songs, I mean, they told a story. Well, they sang about snow, but they had a story about it.
Right.
Today, it's just words. Put in as many words as you possibly can about Christmas. It doesn't have to mean anything. I love that kind of Christmas songs a lot better than the modern stuff.
Well, even like the Charlie Brown cartoon had an incredible soundtrack written by, I think it was Vince, and I'll forget his last name. But he did the whole soundtrack, and it was all piano jazz. And it was just incredible stuff. As good as the cartoon was, I can remember as a kid watching it thinking, oh, wow, the music is so good. The music was what hit me first.
Oh, cool.
On that. And
then when the music hits you from a movie or cartoon, I mean, then it's good music.
Yeah, definitely. All right, speaking of music, let's play one of your songs. We've got two of them here, and I want to play them both on the show. Let's do Hayride first. Tell us a little about that one.
Hayride, that's my summer anthem. I wanted to write a fun, up-tempo, beer-drinking, foot-stomping song. And I played around. I got a title, Hayride, just in my head. And I was just like, Hayride, that sounds cool. And Hayride's fun. And I started to play around with it. And I came up with a chorus. And then I went out to a very good friend of mine. And Anderson is his name, and I told him, hey, I got this cool chorus. What can we do with this? And we started playing around with it, and all of a sudden we had a song. And I think it took us 10 minutes to write it. It was just, it wrote itself, and it was so funny to write it. So it's about summer and having a good time.
Okay. Well, here is Hicks and Hayride.
So you can leave your gun locked up at home. Me and Spider Joe and his cousin Mo are ready to roll. Hey, 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 ride. Come on, have a good time. Hey, 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 ride. The heat is on in summertime. Hey, 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 ride. Hey, ride, hey, ride. Hey, it's a home
You know, do you consider yourself a country artist?
Yeah, I do.
Because I guess maybe now that's considered country music. When I was growing up, that would definitely have been rock and roll.
Oh yeah.
That wasn't.
No, I got it. Like we talked about before, I got one foot in rock and the other foot in country. So I think that's why I sound the way I do.
I think there's a lot of crossover these days because rock and roll has kind of died as mainstream music, unfortunately. But a lot of the rockers kind of migrated over to country in the genre. Yeah, because like that song reminds me of, oh God, Molly Hatchet, and could be some of the hair bands from the 80s. But it's, I don't listen to that and go, oh yeah, that's a nice country song. It doesn't, it doesn't hit my brain like that. It always hits me as just rock and roll, like 70s, 80s type rock and roll.
Yeah. Bryan Adams had a good line about it. He said that, well, country artists these days, they sound like I did back in the 80s. They just added a fiddle.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the lyrics Hayride has a twinge of country element to it, but other than that, it just, I don't know. I guess I'm still confused because
well, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Because when I grew up, that was rock and roll, and
oh yeah.
Now if you're looking for rock and roll music, you have to go to the country station. So.
Exactly, and I like that what is happening in country these days. That there is something for everybody in country. I mean, there's hip hop where they rap for those who like that, and there's pop country, and there's traditional country, there's rock country. There's a little bit of everything for everybody. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's great. So now you wrote that song?
Yeah, I wrote that, and I co-wrote it with Lasse Andersson. Okay. He's a songwriter, producer here from Sweden. He's a great guy.
And you're singing, presumably?
Yeah, I'm singing and playing one of the guitars and, just making a lot of noise.
Oh, super. No, it's a great song. I really like it.
It's an easy title to remember.
Well, it's a catchy song. It's one that'll just stick in your head. And, I mean, that's really what you want when you're trying to write a song that you hope people are going to listen to. You want one that they can relate to. If it gets too obscure, it's you're going to lose the average audience. You might impress some music aficionados, but it's not going to appeal to the average Joe who is a non-musician.
Exactly, and I don't like complicated music. I don't like when you write music to impress your other musician pals. That kind of music is just so stale and boring to me. It's just like, wow, yeah, you're good, but hey, so.
Yeah, you're really good, but only 3 people will understand what you're doing.
Exactly.
And if you want to write something for the masses, you've got to keep it in a format. And yeah, I agree. I mean, there's nothing wrong with trying to write something for the inner circle, but sometimes they can get a little bit too intellectual about it because they tend to be very arrogant in their outlook on music. And unless it's so complicated that only Rachmaninoff is going to understand it, then they think it's useless as music. And I disagree with that. I think that music is for the masses. It should be.
Me too. I think so too. And I mean, I don't mind if you do complicated music because there are people who like that. But like you said, you have to be aware that not so many are going to like that. And you can't be pissed off on people because they don't understand it or don't even like it because it's just too complicated.
Right, exactly. Well, they won't understand it. They'll listen to it and go, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Why?
Yeah. I mean, one of the examples of that was, you remember the group Yes in the 70s?
Oh, yeah.
They did an album called Tales of Topographic Oceans. And I loved all of their albums up to that one. And when I heard that one, now I'm a musician. And when I heard that one, I went, what the hell are they doing? It just went over the deep end for me.
Yeah. And I think a lot of those bands recorded and wrote that progressive, I don't know what you call it, kind of music back in the 70s. I mean, you need to be on drugs to understand
it. Yeah, that's probably the only way. I think that was...
Yeah, because I think a lot of those guys were, when they wrote it.
Yeah, that
they
had a lot
heard
to do
something and they just tried to translate it to the instruments.
Exactly. Didn't quite work.
And when you're high with them, it's just like, oh, yeah, I get that.
One of the things that I always got a kick out of when I was doing a lot of recording with bands back in the 80s was that if we were drinking at the time that we recorded it, it sounded really good live when we were doing it. But the next day when we played it back, we looked at each other and said, we got to do that over, because it wasn't there. It was there.
Yeah,
we thought it was there, but then the next day it wasn't there after the fumes wore off. It didn't work. Let's get to your other song, Stomp a Little Louder. Tell us about that one.
Stomp a Little Louder. That is my latest single. And I co-wrote that song with the country music legend Steve Wariner. I met him in London. We were both playing the British CMA. And I was on stage just before him. And he stood in a wing watching my show. And when I walked off stage, he just came up to me and gave me his card and said, when you're in Nashville next time, give me a call and let's write. So I went back home, packed my stuff, and went to Nashville and wrote Stomp a Little Louder with him. And that was one of the coolest writing experience I've ever had. I mean, I'm a fan of Steve Wariner's. I mean, I have his records at home, and I listen to all of his stuff, and I just love him as a writer, singer, guitar player. And I think he had about 15 number ones on Billboard and around 100 top 10s. So,
wow.
I mean, he's a legend. And there I am sitting writing with him. I'm from Sweden, from Stockholm, Sweden, and now I'm working with one of the biggest artists in Nashville. I mean, how cool is that?
That is cool. And it's always nice when you think about when you were a kid and you say, well, someday, and then it happens.
Exactly. That was really a pinch me moment when we were writing. And the really cool thing about that song, not only did I write it with him, he plays the guitars on the track, and his son Ryan plays the slide guitar. So it's just like, what did just happen here?
Wow, that's great. Well,
and then I went to Dallas to shoot the video for the song. And when I am in Dallas, guess who's playing in Dallas? Steve Wariner. So he shows up in the video just at the end of the video. The last shot is of him. I mean, that is so cool. So I don't know. It's just dreams do come true.
I think they can, yeah. Well, let's listen to the song. It's called Stomp a Little Louder by Hicks, featuring, who's this featuring?
Steve and Ryan Wariner.
Here we go.
For broke or go home, that's what Daddy said. Roll up your sleeves, just do it if you want to get ahead. If you want your dreams to come true, nobody out there's gonna hand it to you. Be sure what you're aiming for and open up the candy store. Stomp a little louder, walk a little prouder, jump a little higher. The only way to win, go on and do your own thing. Fight a little harder, think a little smarter, stomp a little louder. The only way to win, go on and do your own thing. Make it all about love and nothing else. Don't be afraid to always be yourself. The more you give, the more you get. Dive on in and get yourself wet. You're gonna fall, hurt and bleed. Walk it off and get on your feet. And stomp a little louder, walk a little prouder, jump a little higher. The only way to win, go on and do your own thing. And fight a little harder, think a little smarter, stomp a little louder. The only way stomp a little louder. Stomp, stomp a little louder. Walk, walk a little prouder. Jump, jump a little higher. The only way to win, go on and do your own thing. Fight, fight a little harder. Think a little smarter. Stomp, stomp a little louder. The only way to win, go on and do your own thing. And stomp, 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 stomp a little louder. Stomp a little louder. Yeah, just stomp. Yeah, that wasn't that bad, but it wasn't good at all. But hey, I don't care, I just want to stomp. Stomp a little louder.
Oh, very nice. Now, I heard the fiddle at the end there. Was there a banjo in there as well?
No, there's not a banjo, but there's a... Steve is playing a guitar, and I forgot the name of it. But he told me the name of the guitar translates little guitar. I think the name is in Spanish, and it was Pipiosa or something like that. I don't remember. But that can sound like a banjo.
Well, it's got a real plucky kind of sound to it, right?
Yeah, it has.
Okay.
And it is a very small guitar. It sounds, when you just hear that guitar, it doesn't sound anything like a banjo. But mixed with everything else, it just has that sound comes out of it. I don't know. It's weird.
It was very faint, but I could hear it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, nice.
You got a good ear.
I wanted to go back and mention something about Hayride, because this was very good. It said in late 2014, Hayride became the first official U.S. radio single released on MTS Records. I think MTS is our mutual friend Michael Stover. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true.
That's his label? Okay. The song reached the New Music Weekly Top 10 and the Music Row Top 80, making you the first Swedish country act to achieve this status. Well, that's certainly something, isn't it?
It is. And that's why I was asking if I was the first Swedish on your show, because I think it's kind of cool to be the first. But I don't mind that TJ beat me to that.
Yeah,
but,
TJ beat you, unfortunately, but
it's cool. It's really cool to get all the recognition and all the attention, and that when you release a song, that radio picks up on it and starts playing it, and that is just awesome.
Now, are you making a living at your music?
No, I still have a day job, so I can afford to say, no, thank you. I don't want to play at your place for free.
Good for you. Yeah,
for you. Because I don't do that. I'd rather have a day job, because everybody today thinks that music should be free, musicians shouldn't get paid, and it's just like, what and why not?
Yeah, the whole climate has changed. Nobody's buying records anymore.
No,
and
they're not.
Everybody just wants to see it on YouTube for free.
Yeah.
And you got to make a video to boot, which, depending on how much production you want to do, a video can cost a lot of money to shoot.
Yeah.
So you put all that together and you put studio time in to record your song, and then nobody wants to spend a penny to stream it.
No.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
It's a very strange business right now, and I don't know where it's heading. But so that's why I'm keeping my day job. I promised myself when I started the whole Hicks journey that can't be a job. It has to be fun. When I put on my guitar and go out to play, I just got to have a really good time and not be out there chasing money for my livelihood. I just want to go out there and play and have a good time.
Well, anybody who says they're going to become a musician because they want to make money doing it shouldn't be doing it.
No, you have to rethink that, because you can't be doing it for the money.
No, but
even if there was a lot of money to make, I think that's the wrong reason to make music. You got to do it because
you love it. Yeah, because you have to. It's what gets you up in the morning. It's your passion.
And then you will, exactly. It's your passion, and then you will start writing songs that comes from your heart. If you're doing it for the money, you will write bullshit songs that you hope that they will play on radio, and you don't care about your image or about your sound or what the lyrics are about, just as long as you get some airtime. And I think you can fool people once, maybe twice, but those artists, they will disappear.
Sure they will. And, if you want a job to make a lot of money, go work on Wall Street. Don't waste your time being a musician.
No. I mean, it breaks your heart so many times, but at the end of the day, it's worth it.
So what are you working on currently?
I'm writing a lot of songs because I had an album done, but like we talked about before, that when I started out, I was pretty unique with the sound. Nobody sounded like me. Nobody did mix country and rock the way I do. But these days, everybody sounds like that. And I'm not saying they're copying me, because that's just how the genre has evolved. I had a meeting with Mark Wright. He's the head honcho over at Universal South record label in Nashville. And he said he loved this stuff. Great songs, great production, but you're way too early with this sound. Nobody will get it. You're just, it's too early. And he was right, because he said 2 or 3 years, everybody want that sound. And what I heard from CEOs in Nashville, that some of the big Nashville artists are using my songs as references, what kind of sound they want on their next song. And if that is true, it's very flattering.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Well, and it's also very flattering that he said you were too early. Certainly better to be too early with a sound than too late.
Exactly. So that's why I'm changing now, because now they sound like me, and I don't want to be one in the crowd. So I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel or turn myself inside out. I just want something that's unique for me. So maybe next song will have reggae influences or
there you go.
Some calypso. I don't know. I just write, and I'm not trying to manufacture anything. I just want it to be fun and cool to listen to,
Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're kind of out of time at this point.
Yeah, but thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. It was a great interview.
And Michael is known as Hicks, Hicks. His websites are Facebook, Hicks Country, and Twitter, Hicks Country, and www.hickscountry.com. So if you can remember Hicks Country, you can find him all over the place, yeah?
Yeah. Keep it simple. That's my motto.
Okay, super. Well, thanks again for coming on. I enjoyed your music. Great stuff. Keep it up, and be looking forward to the new material when that comes out.
Great, Douglas. Thank you so much for having me.